So, what are some must haves or must do's prior to traveling as a person who is blind or visually impaired? I'm going to discuss with you my recommendations coming up. Hey, welcome back to the channel, Blind to Billionaire. It's great to see you again. So, what are some must haves or must do's prior to traveling as a person who is blind or visually impaired? So we're actually just entering into the season where Corey and I do a lot of traveling. We love to travel, and we typically do so in the fall and over the winter because here in Minnesota it gets pretty cold and it gets to be pretty miserable. So we like to get out of here as often as we can. We like to head south and sit on a beach for as long as we possibly can. So I'm going to go over some of the things that I like to do prior to traveling and some of the items that I like to bring with me when I do travel, just to make my life a little bit easier and just to make the whole experience a little bit easier for everybody. So I'll give you some of the things that I do. So for example, one of the items I bring right here, a folding cane. This thing is paramount. This thing I have with me every single time I travel, and I love it. It's so nice to have. It's essential to have this folding cane. And the reason I do is because anytime that I'm traveling or I'm navigating through an airport or a congested area, an airport or a cruise port, it is so nice to have that cane for so many different reasons. When I navigate through the airport, it's kind of a place that, you don't want to really be acting all that weird, or you don't want to be doing anything that looks suspicious. Well, if I'm walking around the airport and I'm bumping into people, or I'm walking into walls, or I'm tripping on things, or I'm tripping on bags, or just acting weird, it's probably not the best place in the world to be acting like that. It looks really suspicious. And that's the last place that I need somebody thinking like, oh, what's that guy up to? So when I have my cane with me, anytime that I walk into an airport, from the time that I walk in the door until the time that I literally get to my seat on the plane, I have that cane out. And the reason that I do, people are so nice and so accommodating when they see that cane. So when I go over to the desk to maybe check my bag or print out my boarding pass, something like that, they're so nice. And not only that, as I walk through the airport, I'm always with somebody. It's almost always, actually, it is always Corey. And it's just so nice. People stop us and say, oh, people that work at the airports will say, oh, can we help you find anything? Can we help you get anywhere? Can we do anything for you? And people are always so nice. When we get to the security line, same story. Typically, in most airports, there's an accessibility line, or like I don't want to call it a disability line, but it's a special line for people who need extra time, or in wheelchairs, or people like us who are blind or visually impaired. So this line is for people like us. So if you're someone that goes to the airport often and you travel, feel free to use these lines. That's why they have them. They have them for us. So we should definitely use them. So we usually go in that line, and when we go up to, the little counter, the little podium thing where the TSA agents are there checking IDs and boarding passes, when you walk up there, no big deal. They see the cane and they know what's going on, and they make it easy to get through the security line. As we go over to the areas where you put all your stuff in these little totes and push it through the the little scanner thing, whatever, the X-ray machine. It's not an X-ray machine, but you know what it is. You know what I'm talking about. Again, people are so nice. They're helpful. When we get over to actually the metal detector or the body scanner, whichever one we go through, again, the TSA agents are so nice. They come over. Corey always goes through first, and these guys will come over and, they'll let me hold on to their hands, and they'll kind of walk me through and assist me wherever I need to go. And it's just so nice using the cane. And again, we don't need to walk around verbalizing like, oh, I need assistance, and here's why I'm in this line. We just let the cane do the talking, and it's so nice. When we travel, down to the Caribbean, which is typically where we go when we travel, when I have that cane out, it doesn't matter where I am. The white cane is, a symbol all throughout the world that everybody understands. They know that white cane means, it's something that a blind person uses. So we don't need to walk around and try to explain to in all these different countries that may not be English speaking that that I'm blind and that we need a special assistance. Again, we just let the cane do the talking. So we walk through the airport, and any of these people that are in the airports and they see that cane, they typically wave us over, and they either bring us to the front of the line, they bring us to an accessibility line, or they even bring us around the front of the line, and then they'll actually like lift up those little like string, what are they called? I don't know. String where they make like where they corral people. You go through these little to create a line. Anyway, they lift those things up and let us go through. It's just so nice. It's just so incredibly nice to have that cane. So again, if there's any time when I'm walking through an airport or any of these places, and I happen to trip on someone or kick a bag or do something that seems a little bit ridiculous, people just see the cane and they're like, okay, obviously his actions are justified because I have a cane. Clearly, I can't see what's going on. Also, another thing that's really nice too, and I realize this might be a little awkward, but when we're at the airport, the only way that I can use a bathroom is if we go to the companion bathroom. So if we go to the companion bathroom, I have my cane out, and we walk in like that, there's really no question. I mean, it's obvious why we're using that bathroom. But if I don't have the cane and we walk up to a companion bathroom and go inside, anybody that's seeing that might wonder, like, why are those people going in the companion bathroom? It looks a little bit suspicious. They're probably wondering what's going on in a situation where a cane isn't being used. So if you're someone who travels or you're out and about in any of these situations, highly recommend that you bring a cane, a folding cane. It folds up really small, really nicely, and it's just something that is so essential to have with you when traveling, especially through airports. And when you're visiting foreign countries, especially when there's going to be some kind of language barrier, if you're not fluent in the language, we found that it can be difficult when you don't know the language, they don't know our language, and we're trying to tell them, visually impaired, blind, something like that, and they might not understand, and we don't know how to say the right words in their language. So we just use the cane and always just let the cane do the talking for us. So one other item that I bring is, I have it folded up, but it's actually certificate of blindness. I always have a copy of this with me in my bag. And the reason that I do, again, if there's any situation where someone questions that, my vision or my blindness, I just whip out that certificate of blindness and say, hey, look, here it is. You can clearly see that this is the certificate of blindness. I have it with me. And typically I don't need it, but I always like to have a copy with me just in case there's someone who questions it and they want authentication that it's true. So I always just keep a copy with me in my bag. So those are a couple things that I do. I actually don't have it with me, but I have a little bill reader. It's about this big, it's about that long by about that wide. It's just this little device. It has a button on it, and it's a bill reader for currency, for American US dollars. And I'm sure there's other bill readers for other currencies, and there's tons of smartphone apps. If you have a smartphone, you can just get an app. But I always like to bring that with me. Like I said, I don't have it with me at the moment right now, but I like to bring that with me. And the reason is because when we travel down to the Caribbean, we always bring cash. I don't like to use a card of any kind. I just like to pay for everything with cash. So I want to know what bills I have. And again, I'm very organized when it comes to money, but as you can imagine, as you get through the week, a few days in, things get a little bit mixed up over time, and I pull out, some bills out of my pocket. I want to know what I have, especially if somebody knows that I might be visually impaired or blind. If they see the cane, I want to make sure that people aren't trying to take advantage of me by, I pull some money out and try to pay a taxi driver, and all of a sudden they try to say something like, oh, no, that's a 5, when really it's a 20. I'm not saying that's ever happened, but I just want to prevent anyone from trying to possibly take advantage of me. So I always have that bill reader with me, and sometime when people aren't around, if I'm back in my room or I'm somewhere where people can't hear the bill reader actually talking, I like to scan all the bills, put them in a certain order, and I usually separate the bills with paper clips. But I just like to have that with me just so that in the event anything ever happens, I can just slip the bill right in the reader, and then just know what I have, so that there's no mistaking of any kind. So those couple items I like to bring with me on vacation. I find that it makes life a lot easier, especially the cane. That is by far the most valuable item when traveling as a blind or visually impaired person. So what are some of the must-dos before traveling? In my opinion, some of the must-dos is, these are a couple things that I like to do. I like to call ahead to the airline. So I always like, not always, but mostly, I like to fly Delta and or Sun Country. So Sun Country is actually, the hub is here in Minneapolis. So there's always a lot of really great flights and fares and just opportunities to fly with Sun Country out of Minneapolis, since it is the hub. But otherwise, we like to fly Delta. And what we do is, when we book our flight, typically within a day or two after booking the flight, I like to call them, I like to call the airline and explain the situation. And by explain the situation, I just simply mean tell them, I have this flight coming up, I am blind, and I just want to let you guys know that, put a note on my account, put a note on the ticket, so that everybody's aware, so that when we get to the gate, well, actually, before that even, when we print the boarding pass, it's right there on the boarding pass. It usually has a little abbreviation, BLN, or maybe it's like BLND, something like that. So it signifies to anybody that's looking at that ticket that I am blind. So it just makes things a little bit easier. So especially when we go through security, we show the boarding pass and our ID. Those TSA agents see that, okay, we have a blind guy, even if I don't have my cane out, which is actually never the case. But, in the event the cane wasn't out for some reason, they'd still be able to see that. And when we get to the gate, you probably recognize that when you get to the gate, typically before normal boarding, they always make an announcement that says something like, if you have small children, if you have a stroller, if you, for any reason, if you need extra time getting down the jetway, feel free to board now. And we always board during that time. And the reason we do is because, not necessarily that we need more time to board, but I don't really do well in congestion. It's really difficult for me to kind of navigate through a congested area and try to find, what I'm doing and where I'm going. I'm always bumping into people. I'm tripping on things. Whether I have my cane out or not, it doesn't really matter. I still trip on things and bump into people. So we always just find it's so much easier just to board early, and then it's not a big deal. So that when I go to the gate, I hand over my boarding pass, and they can clearly see, okay, that's why these two are boarding early, because obviously this guy has, a blind election on his boarding pass. So again, another great reason. One other thing, when we get onto the plane, the flight attendants are usually standing there right inside the door to greet everybody. And if there's ever a time that they look at my boarding pass, or actually it's even in their system, sometimes, there's actually been many times where we'll be sitting in our seat just hanging out, and a flight attendant will walk over and quietly whisper, are one of you two blind? And then obviously I'll say, yes, me. So they see it on their system, and then when they come around throughout the flight for drinks or snacks or service of any kind, they always pay special attention to me. Like, for example, when they want to speak to me, they'll maybe touch my arm or my shoulder just to get my attention, so that they know that they're actually speaking to me. So I know that they're speaking to me. So it makes it a little bit easier. It just makes life so much easier to have that election, the blind election on the boarding pass, and to call ahead to the airline and just let them know. It just makes it so much easier for everybody and less awkward in any type of situation that may occur. Another phone call I like to make, I like to call the hotel that we're staying at and or the cruise line. So lately we've been going on some cruises, which is something that's new to us as of about a year ago, and we're having a lot of fun with it. So I like to call the hotel and or the cruise line, whatever we're doing for that vacation. And again, the reason I like to do that is, once again, just to tell them, just to let them know, hey, I'm going to be staying with you these dates, I have a reservation, and I'm blind. So again, in the event anything could possibly happen that that I do. Maybe I drop a glass in the bathroom and it shatters. I realize people do that all the time, but it shows that, okay, this is what happened. Or maybe they set up the room a little bit differently. Maybe they push a table over to the side, or they push the chairs against the wall rather than putting them in the middle of the room. Or maybe they, who knows what they could do. But I just like to have that on the reservation. As for the cruises that we like to go on, I like to let them know that I'm blind. I like to give them the heads up. And the reason I do that is, once again, it's nice for them to know, so that when I'm on the ship, if anything were to happen, anything were to go on, they always have that, and they know that. I can also, if I request it, I can also elect for a personal tour of the ship. So the cruise line that we like to go and cruise with is Royal Caribbean, and they actually have the option to get a guided tour of the ship for people who are blind or visually impaired. I've never actually done it, but I've always thought, oh, that'd be kind of interesting just to have my own guided tour of the ship. One other place, we go to Vegas, Las Vegas, every so often, and I find that it's probably pretty important to tell the hotels there that I'm blind. And the reason for that is, obviously, with tons of money in Las Vegas and the casinos and things like that, if there was ever an event in the casino where there was a security guard, or maybe I was sitting at a table playing some kind of card game, and something happened where maybe I touched some cards I wasn't supposed to, or maybe I accidentally bumped someone, I feel like in Vegas, it's a very, I don't want to say risky, but it's kind of like a very volatile situation, whereas like I could possibly get myself into a lot of trouble really easily in Vegas if I accidentally touched the wrong thing, bumped the wrong person, tripped on the wrong table, something like that. I feel like it could be potentially a really serious situation. So we definitely like to tell the casinos and the hotels in Las Vegas, like, hey, there's a blind dude coming, watch out. It's not a big deal, but I would never ever do anything like illegal or bad or anything like that. But those are definitely some people that I do not want to get on their bad side. So those are some of the things. Oh, also at the hotel, typically what's kind of nice too is when I call the hotel or the cruise line and say, hey, I'm staying with you guys these dates and here's my reservation. Something that they also do is they ask for any accommodations that they can possibly make for me. For example, sometimes they'll say, well, can we put you closer to stairs or an elevator, which is nice. It's courteous of them to change my room, or actually just put my room as close to the elevator as possible, because they probably realize, like, it's not all that easy or convenient to walk down a huge long hallway, and we can just give them the room right next to the elevator, and then we'll be set. So those are some of the must-haves that I like to bring with me when traveling, and also some of the must-dos that I do prior to traveling. So if you're blind or visually impaired, I really hope that this video helps you. Or if you're someone who doesn't travel all that much, but you're interested in traveling, I hope that this video gives you some tips as far as, some of the recommendations that I've given for items that I like to do, that I like to bring, or just other must-dos prior to traveling as a person who's blind or visually impaired, like calling the hotel beforehand and just letting them know the situation. So anyway, those are some of my recommendations. I really hope this video was helpful. If you have any comments or questions, or just anything else that you want to say about this video, I'd really appreciate it if you just stick them down in the comments section. Otherwise, if you are new to the channel, I'd really love it if you subscribed. If you look down in the lower right-hand corner of the video, there's actually going to be a picture of me. If you click on that picture, you will actually be subscribed to the channel. So that's pretty cool, and I'd really appreciate your support and just following here on the channel. So anyway, thanks again for watching this video. I really hope it was valuable. So stay tuned for more future videos, and I'll see you again sometime very soon. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you soon.